Good morning, Nate. I hear that it's only a week until you get that cast off. Your dad told me this morning that you get it off, I think next Friday, which is awesome. I bet you can't wait. So last week we went to chapel with the little kids. Today we're going to go to chapel with the big kids where you usually go. So why don't you join me? We'll go on over, and I think they got a pretty awesome speaker this morning, Mr. Wedge. So let's go on over to chapel.
Wow. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, maybe the best way to do it is what I've made all of you do when you pass through my class on Veterans Day. You need to tell a story. You need to tell the story of a veteran. Well, I'm not going to tell a story of just like one veteran. I'm going to tell the story of a family of veterans. A long, long time ago, in a new world, a guy by the name of Thomas was a barrel maker on a ship that came from England. And he landed in a place called Boston. And he liked it so much, he jumped ship and didn't go back with them. And he married a young lady that was born in Boston. And a little later, they moved up to a new frontier that at the time was called Connecticut. And they helped settle a town there. And they war between the North and the South. And at that point, a young man named Luther Clark, who was a Baptist preacher, joined the 117th Ohio Infantry. And he fought with them all through the Civil War except for the last year of the war, when he got captured by the Confederates and put in a Confederate prisoner of war camp. Well, he was lucky. He was one of the ones that survived. And he went home and had 3 wives. Not all at the same time. He had a wife. She lived to be 27. She died giving birth to a child. Got another wife. She was 27. When she died giving birth to another child. Married another wife, and she outlived him. So he's married 3 times. Had a bunch of kids. They stayed in Ohio. Then about 1916, a young man by the name of Charles Richard joined the Ohio National Guard. And his National Guard unit got mobilized because World War I started. And he got sent to Panama. And when he got sent to Panama, he guarded the Panama Canal for 2 years because the United States was scared to death that the Germans were going to come over and blow up the Panama Canal. Well, he was there for 2 years, and no Germans ever showed up, so he was nice and safe. When the war was over with, he came home. But the war had really split up his marriage. He'd been away from his brand new bride for a long time, and his son was about 3 when he came back. They had 1 more child, and then the 2 of them got a divorce and went their merry way. Well, his first son, the oldest boy, his name was Charles Kenneth. And on December 8th, 1941, one day after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, he went down to the local draft board and said, "I volunteer, take me." Well, his mother found out about it, and she ran down to the local draft board, and she said, "You can't take him. He is the sole supporter of our family." So he supported his mother and 2 half-brothers and his half-sister. Well, not wanting to be deterred from what he wanted to do, he grabbed his next oldest, younger than him, but the oldest of his half-brothers, drug him to the steel mill every day for a week, took his pay stub after the end of the first week, went down to the bank, cashed it, walked into the draft board, threw it on the table, and said, "I'm no longer the sole supporter of my family. My brother has a job too." The next day they drafted him and put him in the United States Army. 24 hours after it started, drove a tank out of a landing ship onto the beaches of Omaha Beach, the bloodiest beach of the entire invasion of France. After he parked the tank, the very first job they gave him to do was to bury the 3,000 dead soldiers that had died in the earlier 24 hours on that beach. He was on that beach for about 30 days, and then he went to a place called St. Lo, which is in France. And there they had a huge breakout plan to bust out and get past the main German defenses. And they did. It was so devastating, it took years to rebuild the city of St. Lo. And thousands of people died. He chased Patton's Third Army all across Europe, and when they turned north to liberate a place called Bastogne, where Americans were trapped by the Germans, it was the dead of winter, and it was the coldest winter ever recorded in Germany, or in that part of the world, Belgium. And he also went in with them when they liberated the Nazi death camps. He never got sent to a combat zone. He served during many wars, and he even volunteered to go to a few combat zones. But for some reason, the good Lord was just watching over that guy, and he didn't have to go. And years later, Ken's daughter, his youngest daughter, Jenny, joined the United States Navy. And she served 3 years in the Navy. Now, the one thing that connects all these people from Thomas in 1648 to Jenny is all of them had the same last name. Wedge. Every one of them. And I brought a few things. I was kind of looking at it as I was putting it together this morning, and I thought to myself, because we had to dust it off. I mean, it was pretty covered in dust. Not a lot to show for 21 years, 2 months, and 18 days. But it all means quite a bit. It sits on the Cavalry Parade Field at Fort Riley, Kansas. That's where I grew up. And on here, I have my father's dog tags, my brother's dog tags, and my dog tags. And this set here is mine. And on my dog tags, I have a cross. I wore it from the very first day I got them until I took them off. It's a service cross. And it reminds me, as it says right across the front of it, Christ died for you. My brother, his dog tags was given to me when I was right before I retired. And it was to Captain Wedge for a job well done, because I taught military science at Kansas State University. By the way, they're 7-2 now. Although they've lost their last 2 games, they've been brutalized. My hat that went with my dress blues, and a copy of an award that I received, the Meritorious Service Medal. But this is the most important, because I told you about what happens for a soldier's life. This is the end of it. When a soldier dies, they send out a detail and they put a flag over your coffin. And 7 men fire a gun salute to you. And 1 plays taps, which is the bugle call they play at the end of the day, right as everybody goes to bed. When they're done, the 6 pallbearers lift the flag off your coffin and fold it into a triangle just like this. They take 3, because there's 3 volleys, of the shell casings and slip them inside and hide them in the flag. And then an officer takes a flag like this and walks up to the spouse or the family member, and he offers the flag. He says, "On behalf of a grateful nation, please accept this token of our gratitude." And they give it to him. This flag was my dad's. So you can see it's pretty special, right? I can still feel the shell casings right here. And I remember when they did it. One of the sad parts now is if you go to the National Cemetery, which is, I can't remember what the name of the town is, but it's up north of us. You go there now, and because of budget cuts and how difficult it is, and the fact that so many of our soldiers are away at 2 wars that we're fighting right now, there's not enough soldiers left to give veterans the same burial detail that my dad had. There were 14 enlisted men and 1 officer for my dad's burial detail. Now you get 2. You get 1 officer and 1 person to blow the bugle. And they don't even have to know how to blow the bugle because they walk out with a bugle that has a tape recording in the front of it. And when they push down on the key, it plays taps. You get 2 people now. That's it. But they gently fold the flag and they give it to the surviving spouse. There's no longer a 21-gun salute for it. Just don't have the manpower. How many of you here, because most of you, you've been in my class, right? Raise your hand if you've been in my class. Okay, that's pretty much all of you. Okay, and all of you have written a Veterans Day project paper. Our class is going to present ours later today, and we got a veteran coming by to visit us to talk to us about it. But the most important part about the Veterans Day project isn't the writing of a paper. It's taking the time to ask a veteran to tell you their story. And it's taken the time to say thank you. They gave a lot of their lives. Gave away a portion of their lives and their youth to protect your freedom. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of nights I slept in mud, snow, and on the ground, nothing to cover me. I walked through rain, through rivers. I was so hot I could barely stand it. It was so cold I thought I was going to freeze to death. One time I slept out in a tent. The temperature outside was minus 22 degrees, and we had no heaters. I wore a chemical suit one time that completely enclosed my body. Couldn't get any air other than through the mask that I was wearing. It was 105 degrees outside. Imagine wrapping yourself in cellophane and going standing in the sun for a couple hours on a really hot day. Wasn't fun. But when I look at you guys, worth every penny. Worth every minute I spent. I listened to Colin Powell do a talk last night. And one of the things he said made a lot of sense. Every day should be Veterans Day. We should think about them every day. Because we owe them a lot. So, every one of you know a veteran. You may not even realize it, but every one of you know one. I mean, you know me. I'm a veteran. Many of your parents are veterans. A lot of your grandparents. You got a lot of neighbors that are probably veterans. Especially today, but all year long. Take the time to think.